Stage Left Planet, and I'm your host, Warita Wimbush. This episode is The Cowardly Bishops. Yes, the cowardly bishops, those who won't speak against wrong within the house of God, within the church, within the church body. That's right. I noticed that since Georgia's Senate incumbent Raphael Warnock, who proclaims to be a pastor and who also is very pro-choice, has spoken out in the encouragement of black women in particular to be able to have abortions. I've noticed since this man has spoken out about this issue, and many of us know that abortion is a issue for black women in particular, in that it is a double-edged sword. It is wrong on two edges of the sword, on both edges of the sword. The first edge upon which it is wrong is that it is wrong to take a human life. Margaret Sanger herself said that birth control, and even though she was using birth control as a eugenic method of population control for those populations that she considered to be undesirable, defective, and a detriment to mankind. Honestly, and her major focus was on Afro-Americans. They were her main focus. She gained an interest in that population in particular when she worked with the Negro Project. Now, her goal was to encourage poor people, poor blacks, poor whites, people with disabilities and illnesses, any people that she considered to be defective, that would be a burden and an impediment or a self-destructive force to mankind. She encouraged them to use birth control pills, but she did it in a disingenuous way. Because instead of just saying, hey, we don't need no more of you in the world or in our society, creating a negative impact, or from what she viewed to be a negative impact on society, mainstream society. She convinced many that, you can save more money and be able to have more time to focus on raising your children more effectively. If you had less children, if you use birth control to have less children, and to space the birth of your children out, space them out. So, this is what she did. Even her grandson, Alexander Sanger, who had become CEO of Planned Parenthood, and his goal was to continue the same thing, except with the inclusion of abortion. Matter of fact, abortion had become its primary health provider. As a so-called health provider, abortion became Planned Parenthood's main focus, especially under the rule of Alexander Sanger, who felt that he had to go to the Harlem, basically. Harlem, have a storefront in Harlem, and the places where they could perform, clinics where they could perform the abortion surgeries and stuff. And he tried to frame it in a New York Times interview. He tried to frame it like, oh yeah, this is for the benefit of black women because they are in underserved areas, but that wasn't it at all. He and his, great grandmother had, had a belief in a Malthusian eugenics. Well, this continues on, except the face of the agenda, the face of this ideology is not solely or mostly a white face, the white face of Margaret Sanger. It is black faces, and Sanger herself used black faces such as W.E.B. Du Bois to participate in what he pretty much was a proponent of assimilationist eugenics, in which you have elitist black people who feel like they are better than the black people, the Negro masses, because they have attained wealth and fame and influence, power, and those that kind of thing. So they consider especially education, higher education, so a high level of educational attainment. So they, people of his mindset, the talented temp, so to speak, they basically consider themselves they sort of like the mulattoes. Well, okay, they are like the mulattoes, and many of them in that group basically were mulattoes initially. And basically they consider themselves, put it like this: the goal of assimilationist eugenics is for the best of the best people of all races to intermarry and procreate with one another. That's the goal. And anybody else they feel is regarding population control or progressivism, because that's what eugenics is. It's a sub-philosophy of those, a sub-ideology. They consider them to be defective and people who should be sterilized so as not to ruin the evolution and the progress of mankind. Well, the thing is, these cowardly bishops, many of them come from that class of elitists. And even when they don't, they are socially in brother and sisterhood with such people. And so when they should speak out against them, they don't. Like, I would say any pastor, any bishop, any preacher, reverend, minister that is in the state of Georgia, particularly the Atlanta area, that does not speak out against Raphael Warnock, particularly considering Jesus Christ himself said that if anyone should hurt, if someone should hurt one of these little ones, it would be better for him if a millstone be hung around his neck and he be tossed into the sea. Jesus said that we should be as a little child, where we not trying to lean us our own understanding and thinking we know everything and all this kind of stuff, where we don't think that we can completely comprehend or best out-reason God. Just trust him like a little child would, like a little child does, just trust him, don't try to overanalyze and all, try to gainsay and that kind of thing, And so, I would say that any bishop, any preacher in that Atlanta area, in the state of Georgia, who does not speak out against Raphael Warnock's crusade of Moloch, his satanic crusade against children. They themselves are satanic priests as well. They are satanic bishops. They are not of God. They are cowards and they are wimps. Stop trying to toe the line. Stop trying to be neutral. It's just not going to work. Just stop it. Or step down. And that's me saying the step down part. But consult with God. Search your heart. But don't be a coward and don't be a wuss. When Jesse Jackson ran for president in 1988, all of a sudden, he became pro-choice, pandering to appeal to Democrats, to the liberal Democrats that were proponents of abortion, whereas before he had been a strong pro-life advocate. He really had been. And so, this is what I wanted to say. I wanted to say that. And I hope that you cowardly preachers stand up for the Lord, because Joshua, if you've read the Bible, all throughout the Old Testament, God punishes one of the main sins that ancient Israel commits is sacrificing humans, particularly their children, to Moloch, and offering their children, their babies, their children, even older kids, and people, offering people up as burnt sacrifices to demons such as Moloch, and I want to make Moloch and Baal, okay, and others. Behind those demons, those fallen demons, it's Satan. That's who it is. It's Satan. And they were basically sacrificing these children and sacrificing babies to Satan. In exchange for money, wealth, power, fame, influence, the very things that Satan offered Jesus. And Matthew chapter 4, Jesus turned him down. The very thing. So, focus on God and don't be a coward. Okay? This is Stage Left Planet. I'm your host, Warrita Winbush. Focus on God.